The needle slipped through silk like butter, each stitch invisible. Perfect. Elena Vasquez didn't look up from the wedding dress spread across her workstation, even though her eyes burned from 11 straight hours of hand-sewing crystals onto tulle. Her back ached. Her fingers were raw, but the dress was due tomorrow, and Mrs. Chen at Dynasty Alterations didn't accept excuses. Outside the shop window, Boston's financial district gleamed in the late afternoon sun. Men in $1,000 suits walked past, not even glancing at the cramped storefront where Elena spent 60 hours a week making their wives look beautiful. She'd learned years ago not to notice the wealth passing by her door. It wasn't for her. It never would be. Her phone buzzed. A text from her 16-year-old sister, Sofia. "Can I go to Jenny's after school, please?" Elena's jaw tightened. After school meant after dark, and their neighborhood in Dorchester wasn't safe after dark. Not for a girl Sofia's age. Not with the gangs that had moved in last year, claiming territory block by block, home by 6, no exceptions. She sent the text and returned to the wedding dress. 15 crystals left. Then she could start on the bridesmaid alterations, the mother of the bride's jacket, and the flower girl dress that needed the hem completely redone because someone had measured wrong. Then maybe she could sleep before her shift started again at 7 in the morning. "Elena!" Mrs. Chen's voice cracked like a whip from the front of the shop. "Customer!" Elena's head snapped up. Through the doorway, she could see a woman in the showroom, tall, elegant, dripping with the kind of money that bought silence and loyalty in equal measure. The woman held a small boy's hand. The child couldn't have been more than 7, dressed in a miniature designer suit that probably cost more than Elena's rent. Elena set down the wedding dress carefully and stood, smoothing her own worn jeans and faded Dynasty Alterations polo shirt. She'd worked here for 4 years, ever since she and Sofia had immigrated from Santo Domingo, with nothing but 2 suitcases and their grandmother's sewing kit. Mrs. Chen had given her a chance when no one else would. Elena owed her everything. She walked into the showroom, and the boy looked up at her. His eyes were dark brown, solemn, and something about them made Elena's chest tighten. He looked tired. No, not tired. Sick. "This is Marco," the elegant woman said crisply. Italian accent, expensive jewelry, the kind of posture that came from growing up with power. "He needs a suit fitted for a charity gala next week. The Marino Foundation event." Elena knew that event. Everyone in Boston knew that event. It was where the city's most powerful families gathered under the guise of philanthropy to show off wealth and solidify alliances. The kind of party where a single invitation could change your life, and where people like Elena only existed to serve. "Of course," Elena said, kneeling down to Marco's eye level. "Hi Marco, I'm Elena. I'm going to make sure your suit fits perfectly. Okay?" The boy nodded but didn't smile. Up close, Elena could see the exhaustion in his young face more clearly. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands. And there, on his neck, just above his collar, a rash. Faint, reddish, almost hidden by his shirt. "Can you stand right here for me?" Elena guided him to the fitting platform, her mind already cataloging the alterations needed. The jacket sleeves were too long, the pants needed hemming, the vest could be taken in at the sides, but her eyes kept drifting back to that rash. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena pulled out her measuring tape. "Arms out to the sides, sweetie." Marco complied silently. Elena worked efficiently, calling out measurements that Mrs. Chen recorded. Sleeve length, inseam, waist, shoulder width. Professional, quick, unremarkable. Except for the rash. It had spread. Even in the few minutes Marco had been standing there, Elena could see new patches appearing along his collarbone, creeping up toward his jaw. And his breathing? It was too fast, too shallow. "Has he been to a doctor recently?" Elena asked, trying to keep her voice casual as she measured the jacket's hem. The elegant woman, who Elena now realized must be the boy's aunt or family assistant, frowned. "Why? He seems a little warm. And there's a rash." Elena pointed carefully. The woman barely glanced at Marco's neck. "It's allergies. He gets them every spring." The doctor prescribed cream. But spring was over. It was early October, and Elena had grown up watching her grandmother treat every childhood illness in their village, had seen what allergies looked like versus something more sinister. This wasn't allergies. This looked like the rash her cousin Mateo had developed before they discovered he'd been accidentally exposed to contaminated water, toxins building in his system for weeks, until his organs started failing. Elena's hands stilled on the measuring tape. What kind of allergies? Pollen. The woman checked her watch impatiently. How long will the alterations take? 3 days. Elena's mind was racing. But I really think Marco should see a doctor. This doesn't look like allergies to me. You're a seamstress, not a physician. The woman's tone went ice cold. Do your job. Elena bit back the defensive response. She was a seamstress. She had no medical training, but she also had eyes and instincts, and the memory of Matteo seizing in their grandmother's arms while they waited for the ambulance that came too late. She finished the measurements in silence, helping Marco down from the platform. The boy swayed slightly, and Elena caught his elbow. Are you okay? She asked softly. Marco looked up at her, and for just a second, his careful mask slipped. I'm tired, he whispered. I'm tired all the time, and my stomach hurts. Elena's blood went cold. We'll have the suit ready by Thursday, Mrs. Chen said briskly, ushering them toward the door. The fitting was perfect. The woman paid in cash, crisp $100 bills that Mrs. Chen counted with practiced efficiency. Then they were gone. Marco's small figure disappearing into a black SUV with tinted windows that screamed money and danger in equal measure. Elena stood at the window, watching the vehicle pull away into Boston traffic. Get back to work, Mrs. Chen snapped. That wedding dress won't finish itself. But Elena couldn't move. That rash, the exhaustion, the stomach pain, the too fast breathing. She'd seen this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. And every instinct in her body was screaming that something was very, very wrong with that little boy. She pulled out her phone and did something she'd sworn she'd never do. She Googled the Marino Foundation Charity Gala. The first result was a Society page article with photos from last year's event. And there, in the center of a crowd of powerful men in tuxedos, was a face that made Elena's stomach drop. Dante Romano. The name was a whisper in Boston streets, a legend told in hushed tones. The most powerful crime boss in New England. Ruthless, untouchable. A man who owned judges, politicians, and half the city's businesses. A man whose enemies disappeared without a trace. And the boy whose rash she'd just noticed, the exhausted 7-year-old who'd whispered about being tired all the time, that was his son. Elena closed her phone, her hands shaking. She should forget about it. Go back to her crystals and silk and invisible stitches. Keep her head down, stay out of trouble, protect Sofia, survive. But Matteo's face flashed through her mind, the way he'd looked at her in those final moments, confused and terrified, not understanding why his body was betraying him. Elena had been 12 years old and powerless to help. She wasn't 12 anymore. The wedding dress called to her from the workstation. 15 crystals left. Then the bridesmaid alterations. Then the mother of the bride's jacket. Instead, Elena walked to the back room where Mrs. Chen kept the client files. What are you doing, Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway, her expression suspicious. I need the contact information for Marco's family, Elena said, pulling open the filing cabinet. Absolutely not. Client information is confidential. That boy is sick. Elena found the folder, flipped it open. Really sick. Not allergies. Something worse. Not your problem. Mrs. Chen slammed the folder shut. You're a seamstress. You sew. You don't diagnose. And you especially don't get involved with families like that. Elena met her boss's eyes. If that was your child, wouldn't you want someone to tell you? If that was my child, I wouldn't be stupid enough to trust a seamstress's medical opinion over 12 doctors. Mrs. Chen's voice softened slightly. Elena, listen to me. The Romano family isn't people you want to notice you. You understand? They're dangerous. You make their clothes. You say yes, sir, no, sir, and you stay invisible. That's how you survive. Elena knew Mrs. Chen was right. She knew getting involved with people like the Romanos was like touching a live wire, certain to burn. But she also knew what it looked like when a child was dying and nobody believed it. I need to at least try, Elena said quietly. Mrs. Chen stared at her for a long moment. Then she sighed and opened the folder again. You're going to get yourself killed, or worse. Inside were 2 phone numbers. One labeled primary contact. One labeled emergency. Elena pulled out her phone and, before she could second-guess herself, dialed the emergency number. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. It rang once, twice. On the 3rd ring, a man's voice answered, deep, controlled, with an accent that spoke of Boston streets and Italian heritage. "Who is this?" Elena's mouth went dry. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I work at Dynasty Alterations. I just fitted your son Marco for the charity gala, and I think he's very sick. Not allergies. Something worse." Silence on the other end, long enough that Elena thought he might have hung up. Then, "What did you say your name was?" "Elena Vasquez. I'm a seamstress. I know I have no right to call you, but your son has a rash and he told me he's tired all the time and his stomach hurts, and I've seen this before. My cousin had similar symptoms and he died, because we didn't catch it in time. You're calling to tell me my son is dying." The man's voice was flat, emotionless, based on a rash. "Yes." Elena's hands shook. "I know it sounds crazy. I know you probably have the best doctors in the world looking at him. But please, just have them check for toxins, environmental poisoning, something systemic. Because what I saw today, that's not allergies." More silence. "Where are you right now?" the man asked. "Dynasty Alterations, 47 Essex Street. Don't leave. I'm sending someone." The line went dead. Elena lowered her phone, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "What did you do, Mrs.?" Chen whispered, her face pale. "I don't know," Elena admitted, "but I couldn't not try." 15 minutes later, the black SUV pulled up outside Dynasty Alterations. But this time, it wasn't Marco and his elegant escort who emerged. This time, it was 4 men in dark suits, with the kind of builds that came from gyms and violence. And behind them, stepping out of the back seat with the controlled grace of a predator, was Dante Romano himself. 6'3", broad-shouldered, dark hair with silver at the temples, a face carved from granite, handsome in a brutal way that made people look twice and then immediately look away. He wore a suit that probably cost more than Elena earned in 6 months, and he moved like every inch of the sidewalk belonged to him. Because in Boston, it did. "Mrs." Chen made a small, terrified sound and disappeared into the back room. The bell above the shop door chimed as Dante Romano walked in, his bodyguards fanning out behind him, scanning the small space like they were securing a war zone. Elena stood behind the counter, forcing herself not to run, not to hide. She'd made the call. She'd invited this danger into her life. Now she had to face it. Dante's dark eyes found her immediately, assessing, calculating. "Elena Vasquez." "Yes." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "You called me about my son." "Yes." "Why?" The question hung in the air, not aggressive, not hostile, just genuinely curious, as if Dante Romano couldn't understand why a seamstress would risk calling the most dangerous man in Boston. Elena lifted her chin. "Because he's a little boy who's suffering, and someone needed to notice." Something flickered across Dante's face. Not anger, not gratitude. Something harder to define. "Show me what you saw," he said. Elena pulled out her phone, pulling up photos she'd discreetly taken during the fitting. Close-ups of the rash on Marco's neck, the way it spread across his collarbone, the reddish patches creeping up toward his jaw. "It's subtle," Elena said, handing him the phone. "Easy to dismiss as allergies, but it's spreading too fast. And combined with the fatigue, the stomach pain, the rapid breathing, I think it's systematic. Toxins building in his body." Dante studied the photos, his expression unreadable. Then he handed the phone to one of his men. "Send these to Dr. Castellano. Tell him I want a full toxicology screen. Blood, urine, environmental samples from Marco's bedroom, his school, everywhere he spends time." The man nodded and stepped away, already making calls. Dante turned back to Elena. "How did you know?" "My cousin, in Santo Domingo. He was exposed to contaminated water for weeks before anyone realized. By the time they figured it out, his kidneys were failing. The symptoms started exactly like this. The rash, the exhaustion, the pain. Did he survive?" Elena's throat tightened. "No." Dante was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Come with me." "What?" "To my house, to see Marco. If you're right, if this is poison, I need you to help me figure out where it's coming from." "I'm not a doctor," Elena protested. I just recognize the symptoms, which is more than 12 actual doctors have done." Dante's voice was hard. "My son has been sick for 3 months. 3 months of specialists telling me it's allergies, stress, growing pains. And you, a seamstress, saw the truth in 15 minutes. I could be wrong. Then you're wrong." But if you're right, and I ignored you, and my son dies? Dante stepped closer, and Elena could smell expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Gun oil, maybe. Or just the scent of danger itself. I will never forgive myself. So you're coming with me, now. It wasn't a request. Elena thought about Sofia, waiting for her at home. About Mrs. Chen, hiding in the back room. About the safe, invisible life she'd built through 4 years of keeping her head down and her mouth shut. Then she thought about Marco's solemn eyes. The way he'd whispered, "I'm tired all the time." "Okay," Elena said. "I'll come." Dante nodded once, a sharp, satisfied movement. "Let's go." As Elena grabbed her jacket and followed the most dangerous man in Boston out to his SUV, she had the distinct feeling that her old life had just ended. She had no idea yet whether her new one would be better or worse, but she knew, with absolute certainty, that there was no going back. The Romano estate sat in Beacon Hill like a crown jewel, 4 stories of red brick and white columns that whispered old money and older secrets. The SUV pulled through iron gates that closed behind them with a finality that made Elena's stomach clench. Cameras tracked their movement up the circular driveway. Men in dark suits appeared from seemingly nowhere, hands hovering near concealed weapons. Elena had never felt more out of place in her life. This way. Dante's hand landed on her lower back, guiding her up marble steps toward double doors that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. The touch was impersonal, just pressure and direction, but Elena felt it like a brand. Inside, the mansion opened into a foyer that belonged in a museum. Crystal chandelier overhead, marble floors that reflected the light like water. Original artwork on the walls, the kind that had plaques and insurance policies attached. Elena's worn sneakers squeaked on the polished stone, announcing her poverty with every step. "Mr. Romano." A woman appeared from a side hallway, 60-something with iron-gray hair pulled back severely, and the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile. "Doctor Castellano is already examining Marco. He said he received some concerning photos." "Good. Where's my sister?" "In the study. She's upset that you brought an outsider into the house without consulting the family." Dante's jaw tightened. "My house, my son, my decision. Tell Francesca I'll speak with her after I've seen Marco." The woman nodded, her eyes sliding to Elena with obvious disapproval before she disappeared down another hallway. "That's Mrs. Phillips," Dante said, leading Elena up a grand staircase. "She's been with the family for 30 years. Don't take it personally. She doesn't trust anyone." "Should I be worried about that?" Elena asked, trying to keep her voice light. "Probably." They reached the 2nd floor and walked down a hallway lined with family photos. Elena caught glimpses of a younger Dante, a beautiful woman who must have been his wife, and Marco, as a baby, toddler, young boy. The progression of a life lived in luxury and danger. Dante stopped at a door, his hand on the knob. "Before we go in, you need to understand something. If you're right, if someone is poisoning my son, that means someone in this house is trying to kill him, which means you're now part of something very dangerous. I understand. Do you?" Dante turned to face her fully, and up close, Elena could see the exhaustion carved into his features, the fear he kept locked behind his eyes. "Because once you step through this door, you can't unstep. You become part of my world, and my world doesn't let people leave." Elena thought about Sofia, about Mrs. Chen, about the safe, small life she'd built stitch by stitch. Then she thought about Marco's face. "I'm already part of it. The moment I made that call." Something that might have been respect flickered across Dante's expression. "Yeah, you are." He opened the door. Marco's bedroom was bigger than Elena's entire apartment. King-size bed with navy blue bedding, built-in bookshelves filled with books, a gaming setup in one corner, a reading nook by the window, everything a child could want, except health and safety. The boy sat on his bed in pajamas, looking small and scared as Dr. Castellano examined him. The doctor was in his 50s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the steady hands of someone who'd seen every medical emergency imaginable. "Papa." Marco's face lit up when he saw Dante. Then confusion crossed it when he saw Elena. "Miss Elena? What are you doing here?" "She's here to help." Dante moved to his son's bedside, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. A touch so gentle it contradicted everything Elena knew about this man. "Tell me what you've found, Anthony." Dr. Castellano set down his stethoscope, his expression grave. The seamstress was right. Marco's symptoms aren't consistent with seasonal allergies. His white blood cell count is elevated. His liver enzymes are high. And there's evidence of systemic inflammation. I'm running a full toxicology panel, but preliminary indicators suggest he's been exposed to something toxic over an extended period. The air left the room. Dante's hand tightened on Marco's shoulder. Someone's been poisoning my son. It appears so. The good news is we caught it relatively early. With proper treatment and removing the source of exposure, Marco should make a full recovery. How long? Dante's voice was flat, dangerous. 3 to 6 months of treatment. Chelation therapy to remove the toxins, medication to support his organs, careful monitoring. And if we hadn't caught it? Dr. Castellano met Dante's eyes. Another month, maybe 2, before permanent organ damage. Another 6 months before complete system failure. Elena felt the weight of those words settle over her. She'd been right. Marco was being poisoned. But being right meant something else now, something terrifying. It meant someone in this house wanted a 7-year-old boy dead. Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to one of the bodyguards who'd followed them upstairs. Get Marco's food tested. Everything he's eaten in the past week. Test his bathroom products, his clothes, his toys. Everything. And get me a list of everyone who's had access to his room in the past 3 months. Yes, boss. Dante looked at Dr. Castellano. Start the treatment. Whatever he needs, cost doesn't matter. And Anthony, if anyone asks what you found, you tell them the seamstress was wrong. It's allergies after all. Just severe ones that require new medication. Dr. Castellano nodded slowly, understanding the game. Of course. Severe allergies. The new medication will require Marco to avoid certain foods and products, which will conveniently help us isolate the source. Exactly. Dante turned to Elena. You're staying here until we find who's doing this. What? No, I can't. I have my sister, my job. Your sister will be picked up from school and brought here under protection. Your boss will be compensated for your time away. This isn't negotiable. You're kidnapping me? I'm keeping you alive. Dante's voice went hard. Whoever is poisoning Marco now knows you've identified the symptoms, which makes you a threat, which makes you a target. Elena's blood went cold. She hadn't thought about that, hadn't considered that saving Marco's life might mean ending her own. Miss Elena? Marco's small voice cut through the tension. Are you really staying? Elena looked at the boy, at his hopeful face, and felt her resistance crumble. Yeah, kiddo, I'm really staying. Dante nodded once. Mrs. Phillips will show you to a guest room. Don't leave the estate without my permission. Don't talk to anyone about what you know. And if anyone asks why you're here, you're the new seamstress. I hired you to handle alterations for the family. Is that the truth? Close enough. Dante's eyes held hers. The truth is, you're the only person I trust near my son right now. That makes you more valuable than you can possibly imagine, and more dangerous to whoever wants him dead. The guest room was larger than Elena's entire apartment, with a 4-poster bed, an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub, and windows that overlooked the estate's gardens. Mrs. Phillips had shown her to the room with barely concealed hostility, pointing out the amenities like they were weapons Elena might use incorrectly. Dinner is at 7, Mrs. Phillips said crisply. Mr. Romano expects you to join the family. The family? His sister, Francesca, his cousin, Angelo, Marco, of course, and occasionally other associates. Mrs. Phillips's lips thinned. You'll be expected to dress appropriately. Elena looked down at her Dynasty Alterations polo and worn jeans. I don't have anything appropriate. I'll have something sent up. Mrs. Phillips moved toward the door. One more thing, Miss Vasquez. I've worked for this family for 3 decades. I've seen people come and go. Most of them don't last long. If you're smart, you'll remember that you're a guest here. Nothing more. Noted. After Mrs. Phillips left, Elena sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Sofia, 2 texts from Mrs. Chen. She called her sister first. Elena, where are you? School ended an hour ago and you're not home. Sofia, listen. Something came up with work. You're going to be picked up by some people I trust. They're going to bring you somewhere safe. What? Elena, you're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. But I need you to trust me. When they pick you up, just go with them. Don't fight. Don't run. I'll explain everything when I see you. Are you in trouble? Elena closed her eyes. No. I'm helping someone. But it's complicated. Just please, do what I'm asking. Sofia was quiet for a moment. Okay, but you have to promise me you're safe. I promise. Elena hoped she wasn't lying. After she hung up, she lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry had been finishing a wedding dress on time. Now she was living in a crime boss's mansion, trying to figure out who was slowly murdering his son. How had her life turned into a telenovela? A knock at the door made her sit up. Come in. A young woman entered, maybe 25, with auburn hair and green eyes that assessed Elena with sharp intelligence. She carried a garment bag and a shoebox. I'm Lucia, she said. Mr. Romano's personal shopper. I brought you something for dinner. Thank you. Lucia laid the garment bag on the bed. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you do it? Call him about Marco. You had to know it would pull you into this world. Elena thought about how to answer. I had a cousin who died because nobody noticed he was being poisoned. I couldn't let that happen to another child. Lucia studied her for a long moment. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. A small smile crossed Lucia's face. I like you. Which is why I'm going to give you some advice. Don't trust anyone in this house except Dante and Marco. Everyone else has their own agenda. Even you? Especially me. Lucia moved toward the door. But at least I'm honest about it. See you at dinner, Elena. After Lucia left, Elena unzipped the garment bag. Inside was a simple black dress, elegant but not ostentatious. Designer, definitely, but understated. The shoes were black heels, comfortable height, probably worth more than Elena earned in a month. She showered in the enormous bathroom, scrubbing away the day's tension, then dressed in the clothes Lucia had brought. The dress fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Elena stared at her reflection in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked like she belonged in this world. But she knew better. At 6:55, Elena made her way downstairs, following the sound of voices to a formal dining room. The space was intimidating. A table that could seat 20, more crystal chandeliers, paintings that probably had histories written about them. Dante sat at the head of the table in a fresh suit, reading something on his phone. Marco was to his right, playing with a toy car. And across from Marco sat a woman who could only be Francesca. She was beautiful in a cold, sharp way. Dark hair swept up in a chignon, designer dress, jewelry that caught the light. Her eyes landed on Elena, like a predator spotting prey. So you're the seamstress. Elena Vasquez. Elena moved into the room, acutely aware of every eye on her. Francesca Romano. The woman didn't offer her hand. Dante's sister. And Marco's aunt, which makes his well-being very much my concern. Of course. Sit. Dante gestured to the chair across from Francesca. Sofia should be arriving soon. I sent one of my men to pick her up. Relief flooded through Elena. Thank you. Who's Sofia? Marco asked. My little sister. She's 16. Marco's eyes lit up. Is she nice? She's the best. Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Pasta, fresh bread, salad, wine. The food was incredible, but Elena could barely taste it. She was too aware of Francesca's assessing gaze, of the tension thrumming through the room, of the fact that somewhere in this house, a would-be murderer was watching and waiting. So, Elena, Francesca said, her voice honey-sweet and poisonous. How long have you been a seamstress? 4 years. And before that? I immigrated from the Dominican Republic, worked various jobs, learned English, eventually found dynasty alterations. Such a humble background. Francesca smiled. Tell me, what made you think you were qualified to diagnose my nephew's condition when 12 doctors couldn't? Elena met her eyes. I wasn't trying to diagnose. I was trying to help. There's a difference. Is there? Because it seems to me you saw an opportunity and seized it. A chance to insert yourself into a wealthy family. Francesca. Dante's voice was soft, but it carried weight. Enough. I'm just asking questions, brother. Surely you want to know who you've invited into your home. I know exactly who she is. She's the person who saved Marco's life. That's all I need to know. The sisters stared at each other, a battle of wills that made the air crackle. Finally, Francesca looked away. Of course. Forgive me, Elena. I'm just protective of my family. I understand. Elena didn't believe the apology for a second. The door opened and Sofia burst in, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Elena! Elena stood, moving to her sister. Hey, it's okay. You're okay. Sofia threw her arms around her. What is happening? Who are these people? Why are we here? I'll explain everything, but right now, I just need you to trust me. Marco climbed down from his chair and approached Sofia cautiously. Hi, I'm Marco. Are you Elena's sister? Sofia looked down at the small boy, her fear momentarily forgotten. Yeah, I'm Sofia. Want to see my room? I have a really cool gaming setup. Sofia glanced at Elena, who nodded. Sure, kid. Show me. As Marco led Sofia out of the dining room, chattering about video games, Elena felt something in her chest ease. Her sister was safe. Marco was getting treatment. Maybe, just maybe, this would all work out. Then Francesca spoke, her voice low enough that only Elena and Dante could hear. Someone's trying to kill your son, brother. And you've brought a stranger into our home. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I, Dante said quietly. So do I. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. At midnight, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing through possibilities. Who had access to Marco? Who would benefit from his death? Who hated Dante enough to hurt his child? A soft knock on her door made her sit up. Come in. Dante entered, still in his dress shirt and slacks, though he'd lost the tie and rolled up his sleeves. He looked exhausted. Can't sleep either? He asked. Too much on my mind. Yeah. He moved to the window, looking out over the darkened gardens. Doctor, Castellano sent me the preliminary toxicology results. Marco's been ingesting small amounts of arsenic for approximately 3 months. Elena's breath caught. Arsenic? Old-school poison. Tasteless, odorless. Easy to administer in food or drink. In small doses over time, it mimics a lot of common illnesses. That's why the doctors missed it. Exactly. Dante's hands clenched into fists. Someone in this house has been slowly murdering my son. Someone I trust. Someone with access to his meals, his room, his life. What are you going to do? Find them. And kill them. His voice was flat, matter of fact. This wasn't a threat. It was a promise. But first, I need to narrow down the suspects, which is where you come in. Me? You're a seamstress. You notice details. You see things others miss. Dante turned to face her. I want you to observe my household. Watch how people interact with Marco. Notice who prepares his food, who touches his belongings. Be my eyes. You want me to be a spy. I want you to help me protect my son. Dante moved closer. I know I'm asking a lot. I know you didn't sign up for this, but you're here now, and you're the only person in this house I'm certain isn't trying to kill Marco. How do you know that? Because if you wanted him dead, you wouldn't have called me. You would have stayed silent and let the poison do its work. His eyes held hers. You saved him, Elena, which means you're one of the good ones, and I need good people right now more than I've ever needed anything. Elena thought about all the reasons she should say no, all the ways this could go wrong, all the danger she was walking into. Then she thought about Marco's face, about Sofia downstairs, safe under Dante's protection, about having the power to actually make a difference. Okay, she said. I'll help you, but I need something in return. Name it. If I'm going to be watching your household, I need access, complete access, to the kitchens, the staff areas, Marco's schedule, everything. Done. And Sofia stays safe. No matter what happens, she stays protected. You have my word. Dante extended his hand. Deal? Elena took it, his grip warm and strong. Deal. They stood there for a moment, hands clasped, and Elena felt the weight of what she'd just agreed to settle over her like a shroud. She was now complicit in Dante Romano's world, a world of violence and vengeance, where justice came from bullets instead of courtrooms. But she was also Marco's best chance at survival, and that had to be worth the cost. Get some sleep, Dante said, releasing her hand. Tomorrow starts early. I'm having the entire household questioned. It's going to be a long day. After he left, Elena lay back down, but sleep was even more elusive now. She'd just made a deal with the devil. She just hoped she'd survive long enough to regret it. The next morning, Elena found Marco in the kitchen at 7 a.m., sitting at the counter while a cook prepared breakfast. The cook was a man in his 40s, with thinning hair and nervous hands. Good morning, Elena said, sliding onto the stool next to Marco. Morning, Miss Elena, Marco grinned. Sofia taught me a new game last night. Want to play after breakfast? Sure, kiddo. Elena watched as the cook cracked eggs into a pan, added cheese, poured orange juice. Every movement was careful, precise, but his hands shook slightly. "How long have you worked here?" Elena asked casually. The cook glanced at her. 6 years. Since just after Mrs. Romano passed. "You must be very good at your job. I try my best." He plated the eggs and set them in front of Marco. "Enjoy, Master Marco." Marco picked up his fork, but Elena gently stopped him. "Actually, Marco, I was thinking, how about we make breakfast together today? I bet you'd be really good at cooking." The boy's face lit up. "Really? Really?" Elena turned to the cook. "You don't mind, do you?" The cook's relief was palpable. "Not at all. I'll be in the pantry if you need anything." As soon as he was gone, Elena dumped the eggs in the trash and started fresh. Marco watched with fascination as she taught him how to crack eggs without getting shell in the bowl, how to whisk until fluffy, how to season perfectly. "This is fun," Marco said, watching the eggs cook. "Cooking is like magic. You take ingredients and turn them into something delicious." They ate the eggs together, and Elena felt a small surge of satisfaction. One meal she knew was safe. One meal that couldn't have been poisoned. It was a start. Over the next week, Elena became a ghost in the Romano household. She observed everything. The cook who prepared most of Marco's meals but never ate with the family. Mrs. Phillips, who handled the household schedules and had keys to every room. Francesca, who showed up for dinner but otherwise kept to her wing of the estate. Angelo, Dante's cousin, who visited twice and both times seemed more interested in business than family. She also noticed the patterns. Marco's symptoms were always worse after lunch, which was prepared by the cook and served by a maid named Isabella. The boy seemed fine after breakfast, which Elena had started making with him every morning, and dinner, which was prepared by a different chef who Dante trusted implicitly. On the 8th day, Elena found Isabella in the laundry room, folding towels. "Isabella, right?" Elena said casually. The maid looked up, surprised. "Yes, you're the seamstress." "Elena, I was wondering, do you enjoy working here? It's a job." Isabella's voice was careful, neutral. "Must be hard, working for such a powerful family. It has its challenges." Elena picked up a towel and helped fold. "I heard you've been here for 2 years. That's impressive. Lots of people don't last that long." Something flickered across Isabella's face. Fear? Guilt? "I do my job. That's all Mr. Romano asks." "Of course." Elena set down the towel. "Just curious. Do you prepare Marco's lunch every day?" Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Isabella went still. "Why are you asking?" "Just trying to understand the household routine. I'm new here." "I serve lunch. I don't prepare it." Isabella's hands shook as she folded. "The cook prepares everything. I just bring it to Marco." "Right. Of course." Elena smiled. "Thanks for your help." As she walked away, Elena's mind raced. Isabella was lying. The question was why. That night, Elena found Dante in his study, surrounded by papers and looking like he hadn't slept in days. "I think I know who's poisoning Marco," she said without preamble. Dante's head snapped up. "Who?" "Isabella, the maid who serves his lunch. She's nervous, lying about her involvement with his food, and Marco's symptoms always spike in the afternoons. Isabella's worked here for 2 years. She was vetted. People can be bought, or threatened." Elena moved closer to his desk. "But there's more. I don't think she's acting alone. Someone else is giving her the poison. Someone with more access and authority. Who? I don't know yet, but I will." Elena met his eyes. "Give me 2 more days. I'll get you proof." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You're good at this. The observation, the deduction. Have you ever considered a different career path? Is that a job offer? Maybe." A hint of a smile crossed his face. "If you survive the next 2 days." "Comforting. I'm not in the business of comfort, Elena. I'm in the business of survival." He stood, moving around the desk. "But I want you to know, whatever happens, you've already done more for my son than anyone in this house. That means something to me. I'm not doing it for you. I know. You're doing it for Marco, which is exactly why I trust you." They stood close in the dim study, and Elena felt the pull of this dangerous man. The way he looked at her like she mattered, like she was more than just a seamstress from Dorchester. But she also felt the danger radiating off him. the violence that lurked beneath his polished exterior, the darkness that came from building an empire on blood. "I should get back to Sofia," Elena said, stepping away. "Elena." Dante's voice stopped her at the door. "Thank you. For everything." She looked back at him. "Don't thank me yet. We still have a poisoner to catch." And as she left the study, Elena knew that catching the poisoner was only the beginning. The real question was what happened after. Elena spent the next 2 days becoming invisible. She learned the trick from watching Mrs. Phillips, how to stand in a room without being noticed, how to move through hallways like a shadow, how to listen to conversations people thought were private. She also learned the rhythms of the Romano household. Francesca took her coffee at 9 a.m. in the sunroom, always alone, always making hushed phone calls. Angelo visited every Tuesday and Thursday, meeting with Dante in the study for exactly 1 hour. Mrs. Phillips supervised the staff with military precision, except during lunch, when she disappeared to her private quarters for exactly 30 minutes. And Isabella, nervous Isabella, always lingered near the kitchen during lunch preparation, her hands shaking as she carried Marco's tray upstairs. On the 10th day, Elena made her move. She woke at 5 a.m., before the household stirred, and made her way to the kitchen. The morning cook wouldn't arrive for another hour, which gave her time. She searched methodically, checking every cabinet, every drawer, every container. In the back of the pantry, behind bags of flour and sugar, she found it. A small glass vial, no bigger than her thumb, filled with white powder. No label, no markings. Hidden where only someone who worked in the kitchen would think to look. Elena's hands shook as she photographed it, then carefully returned it to its hiding place. But finding the poison wasn't enough. She needed to catch someone using it. That afternoon, Elena positioned herself in the hallway outside the kitchen, hidden behind a decorative column with a clear view through the doorway. She waited, her phone ready to record. At 12:15, the lunch cook finished preparing Marco's meal: chicken, rice, vegetables, juice. He plated it carefully, set it on a tray, and turned to call for Isabella. But before he could, Mrs. Phillips entered the kitchen. Elena's breath caught. "I'll take the tray up, Mrs. Phillips said crisply. "Isabella is occupied with laundry." The cook nodded and left. Mrs. Phillips stood alone in the kitchen for exactly 15 seconds, her back to the doorway. Her hands moved quickly, efficiently. When she turned, the tray looked exactly the same. But Elena had seen it. The small vial, the quick pour into the juice, the way Mrs. Phillips disposed of something in her pocket before picking up the tray. Elena's phone captured everything. Mrs. Phillips walked toward the hallway, and Elena pressed herself against the column, heart hammering. The older woman passed within feet of her, completely unaware, carrying poisoned food up to a 7-year-old boy. Elena waited until Mrs. Phillips disappeared up the stairs, then ran to Dante's study. She burst through the door without knocking. Dante was on the phone, but one look at Elena's face made him end the call. "What happened?" "Mrs. Phillips, it's Mrs. Phillips." Elena pulled up the video on her phone, hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. "She just poisoned Marco's lunch. I saw her. I recorded it." Dante took the phone, his face going dangerously blank as he watched. When the video ended, he stood slowly, deliberately, like a predator preparing to strike. "Where is she now?" "Taking the tray to Marco." Dante moved faster than Elena had ever seen anyone move. He was out of the study and up the stairs before she could blink, with Elena racing behind him. They reached Marco's room just as Mrs. Phillips was setting the tray on the boy's desk. Marco sat on his bed, reading a book, completely unaware of the danger. "Marco," Dante's voice was carefully controlled. "Come here, son." Marco looked up, confused by the tone. "Papa? Come here, now." The boy obeyed, moving to his father's side. Dante put himself between Marco and Mrs. Phillips, his body a shield. "Mrs. Phillips," Dante said quietly, "step away from the tray." The older woman's face went pale. "Mr. Romano, I don't understand." "Step away." Mrs. Phillips moved back, and Elena saw the moment the woman realized she was caught. Her mask of composure cracked, revealing something desperate and terrified underneath. "Elena," Dante said without taking his eyes off Mrs. Phillips, "take Marco to Francesca's room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." "Papa, what's happening?" Marco's voice was small, scared. "Everything's going to be okay. Figlio mio. Go with Elena." Elena took Marco's hand and pulled him toward the door. As they left, she heard Dante's voice, cold and deadly. "You and I are going to have a conversation, Mrs. Phillips. And you're going to tell me everything." Elena and Marco sat in Francesca's sitting room, the door locked, while chaos erupted elsewhere in the mansion. Marco pressed against her side, trembling. "Miss Elena, why did Papa sound so angry?" "He's just dealing with some grown-up stuff." Elena wrapped her arm around him. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "Is Mrs. Phillips in trouble?" "Yes, sweetheart. She is." Francesca entered through a connecting door, her face unusually pale. "Dante just called. He wants the family in the study. Angelo's on his way." She looked at Elena. "You too. Marco can stay here with Sofia." "What's happening?" "Justice." Francesca's voice was hard. Romano style. Sofia appeared from Francesca's bedroom, and Elena pulled her sister aside. "Stay with Marco. Keep him distracted. Don't let him leave this room, no matter what he hears." "Elena, you're scaring me." "I know. But I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" Sofia nodded, fear and confusion warring in her young face. Elena kissed her forehead, then followed Francesca downstairs to Dante's study. The room was crowded. Dante stood behind his desk, his composure ice-cold and terrifying. Angelo leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Dr. Castellano sat in a chair, looking grim, and Mrs. Phillips knelt in the center of the room, held in place by two of Dante's guards. "Everyone's here," Dante said as Elena and Francesca entered. "Good. Mrs. Phillips has been very forthcoming about her actions." The older woman's face was streaked with tears, her iron composure completely shattered. "Please, Mr. Romano. I didn't want to. I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Dante's voice could have frozen blood. "Tell them what you told me." Mrs. Phillips's shoulders shook. "My grandson. He's 15. 3 months ago, he got involved with the Moretti family, dealing drugs for them, running packages. He got caught by the police, but the Morettis had connections. They said they could make the charges disappear, but I had to do something for them first. Poison my son," Dante finished. "They said it wouldn't kill him. Just make him sick enough that you'd be distracted, weak. They said it was just business." Mrs. Phillips sobbed. "I swear I didn't know it could be fatal. They told me it was harmless, just enough to make him ill. And you believed them." Dante's laugh was bitter. 30 years with this family, and you believed the Morettis over me. My grandson, your grandson is alive and free because of Moretti interference. Meanwhile, my son was dying." Dante moved around the desk with predatory grace. "Did you think about that, Mrs. Phillips? Did you think about Marco suffering? About what it would do to him, to me, to this family? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't bring back 3 months of my son's life. Sorry doesn't erase the terror he felt, the pain, the confusion." Dante stopped in front of her. "You betrayed us. After 30 years of loyalty, of trust, of being treated like family, you chose to murder a child. The Morettis promised. The Morettis lied, as they always do, and you were stupid enough to believe them." Dante turned to Angelo. "Call the Morettis. Tell them we need to talk about their recent actions against this family. Tell them I'm willing to negotiate a peace." Angelo raised an eyebrow. "Boss? Do it." As Angelo made the call, Dante addressed the room. "The Morettis have been trying to weaken us for years. They knew they couldn't take us in a direct confrontation, so they found our vulnerability. My son..." His jaw clenched. "They exploited someone we trusted, turned her against us, and nearly succeeded in destroying everything I've built." "What are you going to do?" Francesca asked quietly. "What I should have done years ago. Finish this." Elena felt ice run through her veins. She'd seen Dante angry, seen him dangerous, but this was different. This was calculated, cold vengeance. Angelo lowered his phone. "Tony Moretti is willing to meet. Tomorrow night. Neutral location. He wants assurances of safety. He'll have them." Dante smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing Elena had ever seen. "Set it up." He turned to the guards holding Mrs. Phillips. "Take her to the safe room. She doesn't leave, doesn't make calls, doesn't communicate with anyone until this is over. After, we'll decide her fate." "What about my grandson?" Mrs. Phillips begged as they dragged her toward the door. "If he had any idea what you were doing, he's as guilty as you are. If he was truly innocent, then he'll be protected. After I deal with the Morettis, I'll make sure the boy is taken care of. That's more mercy than you deserve." After Mrs. Phillips was gone, Dante sagged against his desk, the iron control slipping for just a moment. 30 years, he said quietly. I trusted her with my son. We all did, Francesca said softly. No. Dante's eyes found Elena. We all trusted her except Elena. The stranger. The seamstress who saw what none of us could see. Elena shifted uncomfortably. I was just paying attention. You saved Marco's life 3 times now. Once when you identified the poisoning, once when you insisted on staying to protect him, and once today when you caught the person responsible. Dante moved toward her. Do you understand what that means to me? I was just doing what was right. Right, Dante laughed bitterly. In my world, right and wrong are currencies people trade, for power. But you did right. Because it's who you are. Not because you wanted something from me. Not because you were afraid. Because a child was suffering and you couldn't walk away. He took her hand, and Elena felt the warmth of his skin, the calluses that came from violence and control. After tomorrow, this is over. The marries will be dealt with. Marco will be safe, and you'll have a choice. His eyes held hers. You can take Sofia and go back to your old life. I'll give you enough money that you'll never have to work again. You'll be protected, comfortable, free. Or you stay. You become part of this family officially. You help me raise Marco, protect him, give him something I can't. Goodness. Dante's voice went rough. He needs someone who sees the world the way you do, Elena. Someone who believes in right and wrong, not just power and survival. Elena thought about her cramped apartment in Dorchester, about dynasty alterations and invisible stitches, about the life she'd built carefully, safely, keeping her head down and surviving. Then she thought about Marco's laugh when she taught him to cook, about Sofia bonding with the lonely boy over video games, about having the resources to actually protect her sister from the dangers of their neighborhood, about Dante's eyes when he looked at his son, the fierce love barely contained beneath his dangerous exterior. Can I give you my answer after tomorrow? Elena asked. Yes. Dante released her hand. But Elena, you should know, if you choose to stay, you're choosing this life. All of it. The danger, the violence, the moral compromises. You can't pick and choose the parts you like. I know. Do you? He stepped closer. Tomorrow night, I'm going to kill the men who tried to murder my son. I'm going to do it personally, brutally, and without mercy. And you'll know that's who I am. You'll know what I'm capable of. Elena met his eyes. I already know. I've known since the moment I called you. But here's what you need to know about me. I don't judge people by their worst actions. I judge them by who they protect and why. Something that might have been hope flickered across Dante's face. We'll see if you still believe that after tomorrow. The Moretti meeting was set for midnight at a warehouse on the Boston docks. Neutral territory, no weapons allowed, just talking. Elena knew it was a lie. She wasn't invited to attend. Neither was Francesca or Dr. Castellano. This was business for the men, the soldiers, the ones who understood that peace negotiations in their world always ended in blood. But Elena couldn't stay home, couldn't just wait and wonder. So when Dante and Angelo left at 11 p.m., Elena followed at a careful distance in her own car, keeping far enough back that they wouldn't notice. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, a dark silhouette against darker water. Elena parked several blocks away and approached on foot, her heart hammering. This was insane. She should be home with Marco and Sofia, safe and far away from whatever was about to happen. But something pulled her forward, a need to see, to understand, to witness the reality of the world she was considering joining. The warehouse had broken windows high up on the walls. Elena found a rusted fire escape and climbed carefully, ignoring the way the metal groaned under her weight. From the second-floor window, she had a clear view of the interior. Dante and Angelo stood on one side of an empty space, illuminated by harsh industrial lights. Across from them, 3 men in expensive suits waited. The Morettis. Tony. Dante's voice carried clearly in the empty space. Thank you for coming. Tony Moretti was in his 50s, with silver hair and the kind of face that had seen every ugly thing the world had to offer. Let's skip the pleasantries, Romano. Your message said you wanted to discuss peace. I'm listening. Peace. Dante smiled. Interesting word. Tell me, Tony, is poisoning a child your idea of peace? Tony's expression didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. Mrs. Phillips, my housekeeper. You approached her 3 months ago, threatened her grandson, and forced her to poison my son. Dante's voice was conversational, almost friendly. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? If such a thing happened, which I'm not admitting, maybe you should look at your own security. Clearly, your people aren't as loyal as you thought. Oh, Mrs. Phillips was loyal. For 30 years she was family. Dante's mask of friendliness dropped. Until you exploited her weakness. Used a child to manipulate her into attempting to murder another child. Romano, you're making serious accusations. I have proof. Recordings, Mrs. Phillips's confession. Everything I need to prove the Moretti family attempted to assassinate my heir. Dante pulled out a gun. And suddenly his guards appeared from the shadows. Weapons trained on the Morettis. I could take this to the commission. Let them decide your fate. But I'm not in the mood for bureaucracy. Tony's face went white as he realized the trap. This was supposed to be neutral ground. No weapons. I lied. Dante's smile was vicious. Just like you lied when you told Mrs. Phillips the poison wouldn't kill Marco. Just like you've been lying for years about respecting our territories, our operations, our family. If you kill me, the Moretti family will wage war. The Moretti family is weak. You've been hemorrhaging money for 5 years. Your soldiers are underpaid and disloyal. Your territory is shrinking. You came after my son because you were desperate. Dante stepped closer. And desperate men make fatal mistakes. From her perch at the window, Elena watched in horror and fascination as Dante raised his gun. This is for Marco, he said quietly. For every day he suffered because of your ambition. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse like thunder. Tony Moretti fell, a neat hole in his forehead, dead before he hit the ground. The other 2 Morettis tried to run, but Dante's guards were faster. More gunshots. 2 more bodies. It was over in seconds. Brutal. Efficient. Final. Elena's hands shook as she gripped the window frame. She'd known this was who Dante was. Had known the violence was real. But knowing and seeing were different things. She watched as Dante and his men systematically cleaned the scene, moving bodies, collecting shell casings, erasing evidence with practiced efficiency. This wasn't the first time. It wouldn't be the last. This was Dante Romano's world. This was the price of safety in his protection. Elena climbed down the fire escape carefully and drove home in a daze, her mind replaying the sound of gunshots, the way Tony Moretti's body had crumpled, the coldness in Dante's eyes. She reached the Romano estate at 1 a.m. and found Marco asleep in his bed, peaceful and safe. Sofia dozed in the chair beside him, a book fallen open in her lap. Elena stood in the doorway, looking at them. 2 children who would never have to know hunger or fear or violence, as long as Dante Romano protected them. But that protection came at a cost. It always did. Dante found her on the terrace at dawn, watching the sun rise over Boston Harbor. You followed me last night, he said, not accusingly. Just a statement of fact. I needed to see, and now you have. He stood beside her, close but not touching. What did you think? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I think you're a murderer. I think you killed 3 men without hesitation or remorse. Yes. I think you live in a world where violence is the answer to everything, where power matters more than justice, where children grow up learning to kill or be killed. Yes, and I think, Elena turned to face him, that if you hadn't killed those men, they would have kept coming. They would have found another way to hurt Marco, another weakness to exploit, another person to manipulate. Dante's eyes searched hers. So you don't hate me? I don't know what I feel. Elena's voice shook. Last night terrified me, but Marco's safe now, truly safe. And I can't hate you for protecting your son, even if I hate the method. That's not enough reason to stay. No, it's not. Elena looked back at the sunrise, gathering courage. But Sofia deserves a life where she doesn't have to worry about money or safety, where she can go to a good school and have opportunities I never had. I can give her that. And Marco deserves someone who sees him as a child first and an heir second. Someone who can teach him that there's more to life than power and violence. You can give him that. So maybe, Elena said carefully, we make a deal. I help you raise Marco. I give him stability and goodness and normal childhood experiences. You give Sofia safety and opportunity. And we both do what's best for these kids. Just a business arrangement? Dante's voice was neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment? Hope? No. Elena finally looked at him fully. Because somewhere in the past 2 weeks, you became more than just Marco's father to me. You became someone I respect, someone I trust, despite everything. Someone I could maybe, eventually, care about. Care about. Dante's lips quirked. That's a very careful phrase. It's an honest one. I'm not going to pretend I love you, Dante. I barely know you. But I see who you are with Marco. I see how you protect your family. And I think, maybe, there's something worth building here. Dante stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face gently. I killed 3 men last night. I'll probably kill 3 more next month. I'm not a good man, Elena. No, but you're a good father. And right now, that's enough. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious that might break. Elena kissed him back, tasting coffee and danger and possibility. When they pulled apart, Dante rested his forehead against hers. Stay, please. Not for Marco, not for Sofia, for me. Because I haven't wanted anything for myself in years, but I want you. Okay, Elena whispered. I'll stay. 3 months later, Elena stood in the Romano mansion's grand ballroom, watching Marco and Sofia dance together at the charity gala. The same gala that had started this whole journey, though everything had changed since then. Marco was healthy now, his cheeks pink and eyes bright, no trace of the sick boy he'd been. Dr. Castellano said the arsenic was completely out of his system, and he was thriving. Sofia had enrolled in a private school and was already at the top of her class. She'd made friends, joined the robotics club, and stopped looking over her shoulder every time she walked down the street. And Elena had become something she'd never expected to be, part of a family. Not a traditional family, not a normal family, but a family nonetheless. You look beautiful. Dante appeared at her side, handsome in his tuxedo, his hand finding the small of her back with easy familiarity. Elena wore a dress she'd made herself, midnight blue silk that had taken her 3 weeks to perfect. Thank you. I have something for you. Dante pulled a small box from his pocket. Elena's heart jumped. Dante. It's not what you think. Not yet. He smiled. Open it. Inside the box was a key and a business card. Vasquez Couture was embossed on the card in elegant script, with an address in Boston's most exclusive shopping district. What is this? Your shop. I leased the space, hired staff, set up accounts with fabric suppliers. All you have to do is design. Dante's eyes were warm. You saved my son with your skills, Elena. The least I can do is give you the chance to share them with the world. Tears burned in Elena's eyes. You're giving me a business? I'm giving you a choice. You can work with me, for me, in this life, or you can work for yourself, building something that's entirely yours. Either way, you'll always have a place here. Elena threw her arms around him, not caring who was watching. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dante murmured against her hair, for seeing past who I have to be and believing in who I want to be. They stood like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, while the gala swirled around them. Papa. Miss Elena! Marco ran up, Sofia trailing behind him. Come dance with us. Yeah. Sofia grinned. You guys look too serious. This is supposed to be a party. Elena laughed, wiping her eyes. Okay. One dance. The 4 of them moved to the dance floor, and Elena felt something settle in her chest. This was her family now. Unconventional, complicated, built on circumstances that should never have brought them together. But it was real. It was hers, and she'd fought too hard to walk away now. Later that night, after the gala ended and the children were asleep, Dante found Elena in Marco's room. She sat in the chair by his bed, watching the boy sleep like she did most nights. He's safe, Dante said softly. You don't have to keep watch anymore. I know, but sometimes I still see him the way he was that first day. So sick. So scared. Elena looked up at him. I can't lose him, Dante. I can't. You won't. I promise you that. Dante knelt beside her chair. Elena, I need to tell you something. What? I love you. The words came out quietly, almost hesitantly. I know it's too soon. I know you're not ready to hear it. But I need you to know. You walked into my life when everything was falling apart, and you put it back together. You saved my son. You gave me hope. You made me believe that maybe I could be more than just a monster. Elena touched his face, this dangerous man who'd shown her such gentleness. You're not a monster. You're just a man trying to protect what matters. And you matter. More than I can say. I know. Elena smiled. And maybe someday soon I'll be able to say it back. But right now, this is enough. Being here, being together, being a family. It's more than enough, Dante agreed. It's everything. He kissed her hand and stood. Come to bed. Marco will still be safe if you sleep. Elena took one last look at Marco, peaceful in his dreams, then followed Dante down the hall. Behind them, the Romano mansion settled into quiet. Mrs. Phillips was gone, exiled with enough money to start over but never to return. Isabella had been relocated to Dante's California operations, far from Boston and the memories of her betrayal. The Moretti family had fractured after Tony's death, their territory absorbed by the Romanos and 2 other families. Dante's power had solidified, his position unquestioned, and in the center of it all, a seamstress from Dorchester had become the heart of the Romano family. 6 months later, Elena stood in her new shop, Vasquez Couture, pinning a hem on a wedding dress. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching on bolts of silk and satin arranged like works of art. The bell above the door chimed. We're closed, Elena called without looking up. Even for family? Elena's head snapped up to find Dante in the doorway, Marco and Sofia behind him. The boy ran forward, throwing his arms around her. Miss Elena, guess what? Papa says we can get a dog. Really? Elena laughed, hugging him tight. What kind? A big one. A golden retriever, maybe. And I get to name him. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Dante moved into the shop, his eyes taking in everything she'd built. Elegant dresses on display, sketches pinned to boards, fabrics organized by color and type, evidence of her talent, her vision, her dreams, made real. This place is incredible, he said. Thank you. I'm starting to get clients. Real ones, not just charity cases. Elena smiled. Mrs. Delacroix, the mayor's wife, commissioned a dress for the governor's ball. I heard. It's the talk of Boston society. Dante pulled an envelope from his pocket. Speaking of society events, I have something for you. Elena opened the envelope. Inside were 2 tickets to a charity gala. But not just any gala. The Marino Foundation event. The one where this had all started. We're attending? Elena asked. As a family. You, me, Marco, Sofia. I want Boston to know exactly who you are to us. And who am I? Dante smiled. The woman who saved my son. The woman who gave me back hope. The woman I'm going to marry, if she'll have me. Elena's breath caught. Dante, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Elena Vasquez. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to raise Marco with you. I want to give Sofia away at her wedding. I want everything. Papa's going to marry Miss Elena? Marco's eyes went wide. Really? If she says yes, Dante said, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. Sofia moved closer, taking Elena's hand. Say yes, please. We're already a family. This just makes it official. Elena looked at them. At Dante, dangerous and deadly and desperately in love. At Marco, healthy and happy and looking at her like she hung the moon. At Sofia, her baby sister, who'd found safety and opportunity in the most unexpected place. She thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago. Exhausted, struggling, invisible, just trying to survive. And she thought about the woman she'd become. Strong, confident, loved. Yes, Elena said, her voice steady and sure. Yes, I'll marry you. Dante pulled her into his arms, kissing her while Marco cheered and Sofia laughed. And Elena knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd made the right choice. She'd walked into danger to save a child, and somehow, impossibly, she'd found home. Epilogue. 1 year later, Elena Romano stood in the Romano estate's gardens, watching her husband play with their son. Not their biological son yet, though she was 3 months pregnant with a daughter, but Marco was hers in every way that mattered. Mama, Marco called, waving. Come play with us. Mama. The title still made her heart squeeze. In a minute, sweetheart. I'm talking with Aunt Sofia. Sofia, now 17, and preparing for college applications, sat beside Elena on the garden bench. Harvard or Yale? Both, if you want. Dante says he'll donate buildings if that's what it takes. Sofia laughed. That's so extra. That's your brother-in-law. He really loves you, you know. Like, crazy loves you. Sofia leaned against Elena's shoulder. I'm glad you said yes. To all of it. To him. To this family. To this life. Me too. Elena watched Dante throw Marco in the air, the boy's delighted screams echoing across the gardens. It's not the life I planned, but it's the life I needed. Do you ever miss it? The old life? Elena thought about dynasty alterations, about exhaustion and poverty and invisibility. No, but I remember it, and I make sure I never take this for granted. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Delacroix. Everyone's raving about your designs. 5 women asked for your card at the gala. Elena smiled. Vasquez Couture was thriving. She dressed half of Boston's elite for various events, and fashion magazines were starting to take notice. She had everything she'd ever dreamed of and things she'd never dared to dream. Elena, Dante called. Come here. Marco wants to show you something. Elena stood, Sofia following, and they walked across the perfectly manicured lawn to where Marco was crouched by a flower bed. Look, the boy pointed excitedly. Baby birds! In a nest hidden among the roses, 3 tiny birds chirped for their mother. They're beautiful, Elena said, kneeling beside him. Their mama keeps bringing them food. She's protecting them. Marco looked up at Elena with serious eyes, like you protected me. Elena's throat tightened. Yes, sweetheart. Exactly like that. Will you protect the baby too? When she comes? Every day, I promise. Marco hugged her fiercely. Good. Because you're the best mama in the whole world. Dante's hand found Elena's shoulder, squeezing gently. His eyes held a depth of emotion that still sometimes took her breath away. Love. Gratitude. Wonder that this was his life now. They stood there in the garden, the whole family together. Dante, Elena, Marco, Sofia, and the promise of a daughter growing in Elena's womb. An unconventional family built from tragedy and danger, and impossible choices. But a family nonetheless. Real, whole, home. And as the sun set over the Romano estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Elena knew she'd found something more valuable than wealth, or safety, or even love. She'd found her place in the world. She'd found herself. And she was finally, truly, happy. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.